Hello, I am back with another book review. This time it's another one from Robert A. Russell. It's called The Answer Will Come. This is a book about aligning with divine power, which, if you're not religious, I guess you could sort of translate this book into what he also says is aligning your conscious and your subconscious. Because we can consciously go about our life, but it's actually our subconscious that drives our habits, our beliefs, our behaviours. So if we're consciously going in one direction, but then our subconscious has got some other beliefs, behaviours driving it, it will take us in another direction. So by tapping into our subconscious, by getting clear on what it is that we want, who we are, and aligning our conscious mind with that, we essentially allow the divine power to flow through us. And this could also be almost like acceptance of what you want and who you believe you are at a deep subconscious level. He talks a lot about how to let this power through. The thing I really love about Robert A. Russell is he'll explain something like a statement, and sometimes he'll go back to the Bible, but then he'll say, and how do we do this? So he'll explain something and then he'll go, and how do we do this? Well, we do this by this. And what he talks about a lot is setting your mind on the highest. Again, it's going back to everything that's covered in a lot of the books that I review, which is seek first the kingdom, which is essentially the highest form of consciousness, which is love. So seeing things through that highest perspective, seeing everything as good, looking beyond the five senses to the spirit, seeing things from a higher perspective, no matter what it looks like, knowing that it is love, all love underneath. But sometimes our judgments and beliefs and expectations can kind of cloud that, and we can see things, I guess, distorted. We can see the truth distorted. And so he talks about how to surrender. So having this sort of consciousness of the highest, so assuming that Neville would say sort of living in the end, living in that fulfilled state of completeness. And then the second thing he talks about is releasing mental control, resistance. And he talks about a sponge. And if we squeeze a sponge will basically crumple in its shape. But then if we let go, that sponge will just unfold and it will go back to its shape. And there's so many new thought and old books, Christian and non-Christian, on this subject of mental resistance. There's another one that I really want to cover, which talks about this concept of resistance, but it talks about it from like an electrical standpoint. So like resistance in a current. But going back to this book, he talks about assuming that feeling of the highest, keeping the highest concept that everything is good in your mind first, but then also releasing control, surrendering, releasing resistance. So how might that come about? That just comes about mentally letting go of the need to control outcomes, and also the way that you think it might go, the way that you hope it to go. Because if you're doing that, you're controlling from your ego, your five senses of reality. You're trying to control based upon what you're seeing in your external world right now, when there's so much more, we are infinite. There's so much more to life that we just don't have access to. So it's almost like holding that concept of the highest and then releasing any sort of mental control to the situation. And then when you do that, you almost open up your consciousness as like a channel for the divine to flow through you and situations to arise of its own accord. And I recently had a situation where this happened to me, and it's like I've struggled and strived for an answer, and then it was only when I thought, okay, I'm just going to stop struggling and striving and trying to figure this out using my brain. I'm just going to relax and let the answer come through me, which is what happened. So just to share a personal story, I'm a freelancer, and freelancers often go through a few periods in the year where things are quiet. Happens to all freelancers. And when it happens to me, I can never quite release that sense of control of like, I must be doing something now to generate new business. I need to hustle. And everything I was doing, I was feeling like I was putting force into it, and I felt like I was going in the wrong direction. I just felt like I was just exerting a lot of energy. And something within me just sort of said, just stop, just relax. You don't have many of these days often. Just try and relax into this day. I mean, in my mind, there's all those fear thoughts of, I need new business, this client's finished, or, I need to do this. And, you kind of, once you can sort of witness those fear thoughts in relation to whatever it is, those fear thoughts come up, yeah? And then what do? You try and control the situation because you don't want X to happen. And just going back to Napoleon Hill, there's a great sort of concept that he says about there's 7 basic fears, and he's written a book about how to outwit the 7 basic fears, which is like fear of rejection, fear of loss of love, fear of old age, fear of death. So a lot of our control in life is based around those things. It's about fear. And so when we live in love and when we're feeling complete inside, we can't really have the fear because we don't lack anything. And this is where we're the kind of information that we're working with in this book that Robert A. Russell talks about. It's about releasing that sense of control and that allowing ourselves to be guided. And even if we aren't Christian, I mean, the book talks a lot about God and reference to the Bible, but we can also think about this practically of how creativity works. There's so many stories, and you can look from, years and years. So many scientists, explorers, thinkers have come up against problems, and they've wanted an answer, and they've tried to figure it out, but they haven't managed to do it under their own 5 senses. And it's only when they relaxed and allowed that 6th sense to come through, intuition, whether you want to call it intuition, you can call it God, you can call it higher power, you can call it subconscious, whatever. It doesn't really matter what you call it. It's about surrendering the 5 senses. And when you're surrendering the 5 senses, then the 6th sense can come through. And that's what Robert A. Russell talks about in The Answer Will Come. So even if, like me, you do have resistance sometimes to Christian stuff, I would still encourage you, if you're interested in this stuff, to view it from that perspective that it is about just letting go of our mental hold that we can have sometimes on certain perspectives, certain ways that we think certain things should play out. And so just going back to that story I was talking about, I started to do this same old thing, and this is like my pattern playing out. I've done the same thing for years, which is, get into those states, the fear would come up, I'd try and control the situation when the fear comes up because of lack of, fear of loss, fear of whatever, there's a fear there. And so instead of giving into that fear, I was just relax, breathe into it. And I allowed it space. I just sort of let it be there without letting it drive me, I suppose. It's not something that I ordinarily do. And I just thought, the answer will come. The answer will come. You know, there will be a way of me generating new business. The answer will come. And then later on that evening, I was on social media and I happened to swipe to my right and went on a live stream that I didn't mean to go on. And the first thing that came up was about doing professional voiceovers from home. And I'd done recently this year, I've done a few voiceovers and I really, really enjoyed it. And just hearing what the guy said sparked some interest. And I told him about my background, told him about my profile, and he said, you've got a really good head start. And I asked him questions and he gave me lots and lots of tips. And it sparked something on the inside. I got excited about it. And that then gave me the answer. I was like, oh, yeah, this feels really good, actually. I'm excited about this direction. But I couldn't access that direction with the consciousness that I was in. And you'll probably know, if you're in a frustrated, stressful, fearful place in your mind, you can't access the answers. It's only when we relax and allow the, whatever you want to call it, divine, subconscious guidance to come through and give us the answer. I mean, to me, it was amazing that I'd sort of asked internally that day, surrendered, and then that came to me just that evening and sparked that interest. And I'm like, great, direction, thank you. That's the direction I'm going to go in. And I'm feeling excited about it. And it's just, yeah, when you just like let go of control a little bit and something like that happens, then that bolsters your faith. It bolsters that relaxation. And Robert A. Russell talks about this in the book. It's all about just releasing resistance bit by bit. It's just identifying those fears when they come up and not reacting to them. So someone might say something, bam, you've got a fear they're going to leave me, or loss, or whatever it is. And then you might try and do something or say something to control that situation, or you might leave or whatever. If you can sit with those feelings and surrender into them, observe them without acting on that fear, then amazing things will happen. I encourage you to check out the book. I will link to it below, and I'd love to hear your comments, thoughts, questions.